All right, here comes our ninth storyteller for the evening. Let's hear it for Eric, everybody. Here comes Eric.
I've seen miracles in Algebra 1. It starts on the first day of school as the freshmen drag their butts into my math class. They're expecting to hear words like fractions and integers. Instead, they hear, hey, you guys want to hear a story? And I share a few of the crappy things that happened to me as a kid growing up through my mom's 5 marriages. But I'm locking in on the kids that look like a bunch of beat down or abandoned puppies. I make sure that on that first day they hear the story of how I learned love is a lie. So the checking out starts on the second day when I actually start teaching math. And last year, Michelle was the first kid to go comatose. So I started bugging her to pick up a pencil and try. And every time she lifted up her head off the desk to acknowledge me, the look on her face screamed out, "Why are you bothering with me? It's hopeless." Now, it's tempting to push these kinds of kids away to avoid the pain they remind me of. But it's that look of despair that pulls me back in. So I kept inviting her to join in. And after a few more days of this, she exploded. "Mister, you make me so mad!" And carelessly, I joked to the entire class, "Oh yeah, by the way, you guys need to know I have a superpower. I have the ability to make people feel things. I just made Michelle mad." So of course she got up and she stormed out of class, and I panicked. I thought, man, there's a chance I'll never see her again. So as soon as she left class, she called her dad, who called the principal, who emailed me suggesting I call the dad, which I did as soon as class ended, and he started telling me stories. He had sole custody. There was a restraining order against the mom, and her older sister was pressuring her to make contact with her mom anyway. So I knew right then that Michelle was also learning that love is a lie. So I apologized to the dad, and I asked him to call her and have her come see me. And within minutes, she walked into my empty class, she plopped down on a desk, and she blurted out, "My therapist told me to tell people when they make me mad." So not only did she play the dad card and the principal card, she goes all in with this therapist card. And I was sure most teachers would fold seeing this kind of hand, but I promptly and calmly called bullshit. "My therapist told me I get to decide how I feel, that nobody can make me mad." Isn't this crazy? Like our 2 therapists would get into a fight over this. And she stared at me, dumbfounded. I'm sure nobody had ever responded like this. But it was no use calling my bluff. I wasn't bluffing. So she added, "My therapist told me to tell people when I'm mad." And I said, "Perfect. If you tell me when you're mad, I can figure out ways to help you learn in spite of your anger. Will you forgive me for being such a smart ass and give me another chance?" And she agreed, and I realized right then those stories on the first day bought me that phone call. But the next few months were rough for Michelle. She was absent a lot. When she did show up, I'd bug her to pick up a pencil and try. And when she finally started trying, she didn't get anything right. She had no patience for failure. So she'd lash out. I knew everybody else around her were punishing these cries for help, but I know you cannot punish a Michelle into learning anything. So, God. So nervous. Where's my wife? So she failed first semester. Second semester started with a bang. Michelle showed up and informed all of us that she wanted to be called Michael. But it wasn't just a change in name, it was a change in identity. And I did the best I could, but every time I slipped and called him Michelle, I'd cringe and apologize, and he'd forgive me, which was progress. But But every day that he showed up for class, I'd have to bug him to take off his headphones, put away his phone, pick up a pencil and try. And by this point, I knew this was his way of making sure I noticed him each day. But now I was the one wearing out. So I eventually called him out in the hallway and I said, look, I can tell you're getting tired of me bugging you. Would you like me to give up and just leave you alone? And he stared at me in silence, and his eyes started to tear up. It was all I could do to keep my own eyes from tearing up as I realized how much alike Michael and I were. I wouldn't want anybody to give up on me either. So I said, look, I can tell you don't want to talk about this right now, so I'm going to keep bugging you, okay? And he agreed. And it was funny after that, because every time I bug him, he'd glare at me out of habit, and he'd find me trying not to grin, and then he'd try not to grin. As you remember, he was the one that gave me permission to bug him. And it was starting to work. He was starting to get the math right. And with 2 weeks to go, Michael signed my yearbook. I know it wasn't the easiest to have, but you never gave up on me. I love you, and I'm not lying. And I wished at that point I had a superpower. I wish I had the ability to make kids feel that good about themselves all the time. Michael showed up for the final exam, and for the first time all year, Michael passed a test on the first try and got a C for the semester. And that's how I got to experience the miracle of real love when Michael stepped up and said, for you, Mr. McNeil, I'll try again.